All right, hello and welcome to the December coaches meeting. Thanks for joining us before everyone leaves for their holiday break. The agenda link is pinned in the chat, so make sure you find that and sign in for us so we know you are here. You can also follow along with the agenda. If you're watching later, you can find the agenda link and sign in, or not. That's okay too. So not really a lot to recap from last time. Talked about some match etiquette, unified and middle school playoffs. Highlighted a few changes for spring, which we'll come back and talk about as well. Spring registration is open, and then highlighted a few things moving forward. So to start with new business, first some congratulations are in order. Hopefully at least a few of these people are here. We finished Unified Rocket League playoffs with Hebron Middle School coming runner-up in the Rocket League fall playoffs, and Logansport High School being your Unified State champions. And then for Minecraft Bed Wars, Nick and crew at Greensburg were the state runner-ups, and Argos Middle School were your state champions for Bed Wars. And for Fortnite Zone Wars, Hobart, Chris and his crew there were the runner-ups, and we had state champions from Clark Pleasant Middle School. So congratulations to all of you. Trophies are either in your hands already or hopefully on their way soon in the case of one. So congratulations, and we'll look forward to more from the future. On the note of applications for board members and title runners, so if any of you are interested in throwing your hat in the ring for more of an involved role in IEN, there's a Google form linked there. You can voice your willingness to be a title runner for a specific game, which will basically help us out answering questions about that title, making sure we're on top of any rule disputes and those sorts of things. Kind of the point person for match day communications to kind of help answer some of those frontline questions. Or if you're interested in being considered for the board of directors, you can voice that on that form as well. We'll be in touch before the January meeting with all of those things, because at the January meeting we'll announce those new title runners and any new board members if applicable. Rule changes for spring. Most everything is staying the same. We did roll out some Minecraft scoring changes during the playoffs for middle school. So, kind of the backstory is we were hoping for something similar to this scoring structure since the beginning. We realized that just the last man standing only points were not ideal. That being said, we didn't have a good way of tracking other scoring parameters until now. So the developers at CompMC have done a lot of work. And if you've been playing middle school, you know this, but now we have access to a stats page that can be generated after the match. We'll be able to track all of those important statistics and award points for them. So if you're not familiar with that Minecraft scoring change, we did post those new rules. They are updated on the one-pager and LeagueOS as well. But basically now there are points for more than just being the last team standing. Creates a more dynamic match, a more engaging match that's less 4 teams sitting in their base just all scoring 4 points every round, which was not ideal in the past, turns out. We do have to make one more small change based on some feedback and some happenings in some of the matches. We're going to have to institute a 1-point penalty for any players that self-eliminate, meaning like jump off or fall off the map after their bed has been destroyed. Without that penalty, what teams could do is kind of starve other teams from those final elimination points, by realizing, like, hey, if I jump off the stage, nobody gets the point for this. We want to avoid that sort of mechanic. So this point penalty, while might feel bad if a player accidentally falls off the map, is what we agree the best for competitive integrity of the scoring system. So just make sure you understand that and communicate that to your players. Once the bet has been eliminated, be careful not to fall off the stage, or else you'll incur a point penalty. If that has not already been, those rules will be pushed out on the LeagueOS and the one-pager soon as well. But we just wanted to highlight that since that is a change. Other than that, no rule changes going into spring. Everything should be the same as it was in fall. Varsity forfeits. So, there were a few teams that exceeded the maximum number of allowed forfeits. If your team was one of those, you'll be receiving an email and a mailed letter of notification that that team is not eligible for varsity for that game for the spring. So if your team forfeited more than 2 matches, meaning like your Valorant team, for instance, forfeited 3 matches, your Valorant team would not be eligible for varsity competition in the spring. Your other school teams would. It's not a school penalty or ban, it is team by team specific. So just make sure you understand that. We'll be sending out those notifications. We'll also be sending out emails with warnings if you forfeited 2, just to kind of keep you on track and realize, like, hey, if you forfeit 1 more, then you would have not been allowed to play varsity in the spring. So since there is that varsity fee now, we just wanted to make sure everyone was aware. That was in the general rules. It's something we've discussed, but we're going to send out those reminders to make sure everyone's on top of things. Spring registration is currently open. It will be open through January 10th. It closes midnight on January 10th. There is an instruction video link there. There's also a few other places. We had our first help session tonight, and we're able to help a few of you kind of get settled on things. If you're going through this process and need help, we have 3 more help sessions, January 3rd, 7th, and 9th. Those will take place right here on the Google Meet, the same one that you're on now, the same one for the coaches meetings. Those start at 7 p.m. Eastern. Is that true, Nick? All of them start at 7 p.m. Eastern? I believe so.
Yes.
Yes. So feel free to jump in if you need anything with those. You can also just hop in Discord, send us a message, open up a help desk ticket if it's something you maybe need a little more personalized feedback with, and we will help at our earliest convenience. But our response times are pretty good. So just let us know how we can help. A little bit about state finals coming up in April, just a broad timeline so you can kind of put things on your calendar or on your radar for thinking about things. The plan is to release the competition schedule for the day in January at our mandatory meeting so that you can start planning out like, hey, I think my Super Smash Brothers team might qualify. Here's when you would play in the schedule so you can start working out those rough plans. We'll also open up the signups for the college recruiting tables. So if you have a local college or university who maybe you haven't seen at finals before or are not sure if we have contact with, watch out in January for more information. We're looking to have as many colleges there as we can for the college recruiting fair. In March, we'll open up actual event registration for finals. So by mid-March or so is when you'll be able to actually register yourself as attending, your students as attending, and all those sorts of things. There'll be a lot more information to come throughout January, February, March about specifics. We're going to host educational sessions again, so that schedule will be released by registration time. You'll be able to figure out what sessions you'd like to attend, which ones your students would like to attend, all those fun sorts of things. And then kind of all the extra happenings as well. So we're still finalizing details on some of those, but there should be a lot of other opportunities for you and students as well. So if that's not on your calendar, April 26th at Ball State University, free for all attendees and the public. Lots going on for you, administrators, players, parents. So start advertising that. It's going to be bigger and better than it even was last year. So we're excited for all the opportunities that will be present. Also at that event is the Super Smash Bros. 1v1 tournament put on in partnership with Odyssey. So some of your students may have been participating in those online or in-person qualifiers. We'll be hosting the top 24 individual competitors there at our state finals event who will qualify for the Hoosier Saga Championship later on in May. Another opportunity coming up that is fairly new and still working out details on is a Midwest Invitational. So there are a handful of states around the Midwest who are combining together to host somewhat of an all-stars competition for the best players from the states, specifically for Rocket League and Super Smash Bros. So we'll be releasing more information to come. But if you have a really high caliber Rocket League or Super Smash Bros. Team at the high school level, be on the lookout for more information about this Midwest Invitational. But as we get closer to state finals and we start getting an idea of who the best teams in the state are, we'll be releasing more information for this. The date is the end of May, so there's a lot of leeway there to work up to that. The 25-26 calendar, this is kind of where we're working in the coming future. If figuring out what next year looks like so we can have all this prepared and ready to get to you all by May. Um, a few things we're thinking about in terms of titles. League of Legends hasn't been in what we would call a healthy spot for a little while. Pains me in particular as a league player. We just don't really have the critical mass of teams we need to run League of Legends as a title. So we're looking at the opportunity for having our teams compete with other teams across the country as an interstate competition. There's some potential there. There's also other leagues like Valhalla that offer League of Legends. So if you have a League of Legends team, we're not just throwing you under the bus, but we're going to try to get you some opportunities. It just won't be an IEN only competition. It doesn't make sense with the number of teams we currently have. Mario Kart we tried out middle school for fall. It's going to be high school club for spring. Assuming everything goes well, like we intend it to, it'll be a varsity title in 24, 20, 25, 26. So we'll have to look at that. This is not spring 24. Way to go. Spring 25. Marvel Rivals is the thing everyone's been talking about. Right now we're waiting on a few things. The first is there are no community guidelines for community licenses available as far as we can tell anywhere. As an organization, we want to be sure we're abiding by those publisher agreements so we don't just have the rug pulled out from underneath of us. So what we're trying to avoid is saying, hey, we're going to do Marvel Rivals. We have this competition set up. And then NetEase being like, no, you don't. You're not allowed to play. And pulling the rug out from underneath of us in the middle of a season. So we want to make sure we have all the legal ducks in a row, so to speak. That being said, we do want to try a community open, even yet in the spring, just to see how it works, make sure a rule set makes sense, gauge ability and viability to run as a title for next year. But inclusion as either a club or varsity title for 25-26 really hinges on whether or not we can get that publisher licensing agreement to be able to run it in an official way. Assuming that happens, by all means, we can try it out. But that's why we kind of have to start with the community open and wait and see what happens on that licensing front. We talk about sports games. There's always some interest in doing sports titles. Sports titles are difficult for a few reasons. Almost entirely, they're exclusively solo titles. There are some team formats, but they're not what I would call really team formats. They're still just kind of solo and individual. The annual licensing cost for competitors is also a barrier. So there's a new game that comes out every year, and while a lot of people are like, well, just play one that's a few years old, unfortunately the publishers don't allow for that in their licensing agreements. They only allow for licensing agreements for the most current version, which is their way of making sure you purchase it. So it would get cost prohibitive as well. That said, if we reach a number of students who are really interested and we try some sort of community open that's organized and it works, we can always evaluate that. But historically, sports titles have not reached that critical mass of players. We've also talked about other fighting games, so things like Tekken or Street Fighter. Where we're at now with those is just kind of evaluating, is that something your students are playing? Are your students asking for other fighting games apart from Super Smash Bros.? Do they want something like Tekken or Street Fighter? You can let us know if that's the case. You can kind of poll your students, have other coaches poll their students. There are some possible opportunities there if we can figure out if there's enough students who are interested. And then if you'd like to provide feedback on the 25-26 calendar, things you're like, hey, we really need to change this. Have you considered this or that? That link there is to the IEN comment box form. We check that. We get emails every time a response is submitted. It doesn't have to be related to the calendar. It can be related to anything. IEN, just let us know if you have opinions and feedback on how we can do things better or structure things differently. But specifically, if you're looking at the calendar and you're like, hey, this has always bugged me. Why does this occur this way? That feedback form is the place to let us know. And I think that's it. Carlos, Chris, Nick, what did I miss? I see some head shaking. All right. Just a quick reminder, the January coaches meeting is another mandatory meeting. If you can't make it live, what you will have to do is complete Nick's famous Ed puzzle. He very much enjoys putting you all through that. So you can either attend the meeting live or asynchronously later, but either one will be a requirement for your spring registration. We will make sure that you have completed one of them. This with the January meeting is not quite the same as the fall mandatory meeting. We will go over some basics of rules like we did in that one, but we'll also do, election of board members, some of the business style things that an organization should do. So just keep that in mind. We'll try to keep it as short as possible, knowing that's the first week back for a lot of us, and that's the week before the season starts. So we'll have a lot going on, but do put that on your calendar to remember the mandatory January meeting. Questions from chat real quick before we end the recording. I saw the rivals team. Can we recommend new titles and apply to be a title runner? Yep, Ian, use that comment form. Be like, hey, we should do this. Uh, Keep in mind, if you say, hey, we should do this, our response is probably going to be, great, let's help you do that. And you can take charge of it. Jonathan, seems like racing sims would be a good choice for the league, but iRacing simply doesn't seem to have much appeal. Yeah, it's difficult as well because we're trying to figure out what is and isn't supported from the publisher level. We ran Forza in the past, and then there were issues with Forza, so we switched to iRacing, and iRacing is expensive and prohibitive in that way. We had a partnership with iRacing. It's kind of dwindled, but there's hopes of maybe rekindling that partnership and being able to get access to some different resources for schools as a result. But by all means, if you have a suggestion for another sim, we can consider it. But historically, iRacing has been the one that we've been able to most easily and best support. Other questions? All right. Well, I'm going to end the recording. As always, you're free to hang out and ask individual questions or chat. Um, Thank you for taking the time out of the evening before winter break when all of us are just ready to check out for the rest of the year. Let us know how we can help, specifically with registration. If you're stressing out about it, just don't worry. Take a breath, and we'll come back after winter break and still get you registered. It's not something you have to worry about before the holidays. We'll be able to get you all squared away after the new year. So, biggest thing, as always, let us know how Nick, Carlos, Chris, Trevor, Dylan, and I can help, and we're happy to do that. So, thanks all. Have a good one.